YouTube channels that I listen to on my way home from dropping off my kids at school. And it resonated because it was something that I just recently was talking to another business owner about. And it's when people offer up free advice. One thing, like my whole life growing up, I never really cared to offer people advice or cared to offer them anything that was unsolicited. I have, and it's usually because of the relationship that I have with the person. So if I have a good relationship with somebody, I might tell them, hey, you haven't asked for this, but if I was in the same situation, this may be options that I would be looking at doing. And I try to word it that way every single time because there are a lot of people that offer advice and they offer it in a way that it is absolute and it's going to be the best possible thing you could ever do is to listen to them. So getting into the meat of this, right, is that poor people, right, in my lifetime, this is coming from just my soul experience, right? Poor people are always the first to start giving financial advice. It's crazy. I meet somebody, and I'm not trying to brag. I'm not going out on any type of limb of like going into like trying to exemplify or magnify myself in any way. That's not what this is about. This is about maybe this can help somebody out there, and maybe you offer advice and you shouldn't be offering advice. So maybe this can help you, or maybe it can help you recognize when people are giving you advice and you're not understanding why it doesn't work or whatever. So I always take into account the source of the advice. And it's crazy. So going back, poor people always offer financial advice. Oh, you should be investing into that stock. Oh man, if I had this much money, I'd go and you do this and you're going to be rich. And feeling rich and being rich is relative. That I don't think a lot of people understand. I had a conversation years ago with somebody, and we were talking. He was like, "Oh yeah, if you make $200,000, you're rich, man. You're living in the top percent of people in the country." And I was like, I don't believe that to be true. And he's like, "Well, how could it not be?" I'm like, honestly, I feel like if you're making about 200,000 anymore, you're kind of in like up maybe upper middle class. It depends on your expenses and where your money's going to. But it was hard for him to conceptualize that because to him 200,000 you're rich. And to me I feel like depending on like loans, like if you're making $200,000 a year and through any means, whatever means, maybe your job, maybe business, whatever you're making it from, if that's not actual bring home, you got a lot of other issues. I mean, you have your mortgage. Maybe you have a really high mortgage. Maybe your car payment. Maybe you've went too far out. It just depends on your standard of living is really what it comes down to. But going back to this, right? I get off on tangents all the time. So, poor people give you advice financially, and I found that like people that end up divorced or that are single or that are in bad relationships always want to give you relationship advice. Here's what you need to do to make your relationship better. I've actually seen people, right, that looking at it and reading some of their articles and watching some of their videos, this lady was giving marital advice and she had already been divorced. Well, here's the do's and don'ts of marriage. And I was like, what? The only do's and don'ts I need to know is do not listen to you. Don't follow what you're saying because you've been divorced. Like, you've already failed at it. And I understand that there's still information and there's still stuff to learn, right? Especially if somebody does have some first on experience, but it's not the first source that I'm going to go to. You know, if I'm looking at a couple that said, "Hey, we've been together for 50 years, 60 years. Here's what we've done." That's a more credible source than somebody who said, "Hey, I've been married for 3 years, got a divorce. Now you want to listen to me on advice." It goes back to dealing with my publishing company. So I have a book that should be coming out here soon. Uh, Little plug. I did an editorial review or editorial uh, release, so editor's release. So it wasn't quite edited or anything, and I did a mini release, and it did okay for a mini release. I'm talking with the publishing company, and one of the things that the guy was talking to me, he was laughing, and he's like, "You know what I find that's really crazy that I hadn't seen before?" And this was um, he was an older guy, 60 some years old. He'd already retired from one job, and he was doing this in the editing company. He was working for them just because he really loved it. It was something he was passionate about, helping people do their books and stuff like that, right? But he's like, "Man, this new craze or something's going on." He's like, "I'm getting these 20-year-olds that have written an autobiography," and it's he's like, they're thinking it's going to be a bestseller. He's like, "You haven't even lived life," and it's true. It's really funny, right? So again, poor people give you the first advice on finances. People not good at relationships want to give you relationship advice. It's just, I hear people, parental advice. It's just, I'm like, your kid's over there jumping on your other kid's head, and you're giving me advice on how to raise my kids, and my kids are in the top of their school district. So what do you want to tell me to do differently? And again, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to be, like sound like the jerk. It's just crazy, right? People that are not there are trying to tell people how to get there. And what I was listening to back to the YouTube thing was the guy was saying, he was like, "Man, people are always trying to give me advice." He's like, "They don't make as much money as I have. They haven't accomplished what I have, and yet they're trying to give me advice as though they've already done it." And it was frustrating for him. He was going on this whole rant about how he was just fed up with people doing that. Uh, I understand. I think it's funny. I've been there. I've seen that. I still see it. I still experience it, and I do enjoy advice, right? So when I was starting off business, for years I was doing research. I was listening to. I was talking to people all the time, every day, and I didn't want to know about as much about the people who succeeded, because it seemed like the people who succeeded, a lot of times winners win, right? So there's just certain people out there that you can put them in any situation with anything, and they're going to come out on top, right? And then there's the rest of all of us, where I would say there's a big medium. Now, there are people on the opposite end of the spectrum that no matter what you do for that person, they're going to fail. They find ways to fail. But then there's the middle. And I feel like that's a lot, right? For the rest of us, that we need a lot of direction. And so when I would talk to people, I would try to find out why people failed. They would tell me, "Hey, my cousin did that, or my brother did that, or we tried that, or blah, 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 whatever." And any information I could get, why did they fail? What happened? What did they do? And I was just full of questions. I wanted to hear. I had so many questions all the time. And it was always the same questions to different people on to why either they failed or people they knew that failed it. And then I found that there became a lot of those questions, or a lot of those answers became repetitive. And that's going based off people that had tried it and failed. Um, that's not advice. That's me asking for information, right? The free advice that I'm talking about is if I said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna buy this house," and they're like, "Well, do you know anything about buying houses? Let me tell you this, you know." And then they go into this whole rant. Well, if you're gonna buy a house, you know, you're gonna need to do this and this and this. Um, and when talking to somebody, first of all, I don't want to offer advice because I don't know what they know. So, and it is kind of annoying sometimes, right? When someone starts offering advice and I'm sitting there looking at them going, what business do you own? How many businesses do you own? How much money you're making from these businesses? And it's not. They don't own any business. They're not making any money from business. They're not even making money from the advice they're trying to tell you to do, right? So that's where it gets annoying. So before any time, I always want to ask questions, you know, like, oh, how's your business? You know, how many houses do you have? How is it going for you? How do you manage them? I always lead with questions, and I try to teach my kids to lead with questions, because if I'm leading with questions, it leads me down an understanding of where that person is, and they could be further ahead of me. They could be like light years. Then, like, I definitely, if they're just freely offering up information and they're like, they own 500 houses and they're starting to tell me information, yeah, well, yeah, now I definitely want to hear what you have to say, right? But if I don't know the value of your information, why do I want to hear what it is? And I feel like a lot of times, like, the people that are the light years, they own 500 houses and, you know, whatever. They don't tend to offer up the information quite like that. From my experiences, they're there. A lot of times they're a little bit more quiet, and they're also more in tune with listening. They want to hear, what are you going to tell them? Maybe you might tell them something new that they haven't experienced or that they haven't thought of. And they're the ones that are always willing to listen. That's where I feel like I am when I'm in groups with individuals, as I'm listening to them, and I want to know what they're saying. What are they doing? As an entrepreneur myself, I am always listening to other business ideas, other business strategies. What are people doing? How are you doing that? What goes along with that? What were your hurdles in accomplishing this? What hoops does the government put you, you know, that you have to jump through in order to achieve that? These are all just questions that go along with with business. So back to what I was originally going into is careful. Be careful offering up advice when it's unsolicited. Be careful offering advice in general. When you're offering advice, I always try to word it as what I would do in that situation. Because I feel like sometimes we take things personal, right? So if somebody offers advice and I say, well, you should do this. Okay, so, and then they don't do it. Then I'm like, well, you didn't do my advice, right? And I have seen that where I've given them advice and I probably have said, you should probably do this. And then they didn't do it, and then their way failed. And I know that if they would have did it the way I said, it would have succeeded. And then it's just kind of like, well, why didn't you listen to me? What are you, dummy? I feel like that's where it goes, right? That's where it gets going. Like, when you offer advice, like, you should do this, you should do this, and then do this, and you give them outline, like, what they need to do, and they don't follow it, it becomes more of like a personal thing where... And why I'm saying be careful is because I say, well, if I were in your situation, I would probably do this, right? That kind of encompasses the whole thing. That puts me in the situation, hypothetically, and hypothetically what I think I would do in that situation. So ultimately, you don't know what you would do in that situation if you've never been in it or if you're not in it. Now, if you have been in the situation, you go, hey, when I was in this situation, this is what I did, and it helped me get out of it. That's how I'm going to end it. I'm not going to tell them that's what they need to do. I'm not going to go further into pushing them to do what I did. Because maybe it worked for me, but maybe it wouldn't work for them. So careful offering advice. Think about it. Think about the advice that you want to give, like, and really go into like, did they ask for it? If the response to yourself is no, that they did not ask for it, you probably shouldn't give the advice. I mean, unless it's your kids, right? I mean, your kids are a different scenario. Our jobs as parents, we need to raise these kids so they're prepped and ready to go into the world. So we have to give them advice. We have to lead them, guide them, walk beside them, teach them every step of the way. But when it comes to another adult, if they didn't ask for your advice, you probably shouldn't give it, right? And this isn't me giving you advice. This is me making statements. Um, and when it comes to business, if somebody doesn't ask for it, you probably shouldn't give it. It just really isn't necessary, right? Unless you're a customer there and you're displeased with something, then you should. Then you should. Like if you say, hey, here's a small business. I like going here. However, I'm displeased with a couple things at this business. It's okay. It's up to the owner at that point to then decide if they want to listen to your suggestions or not. When it comes to financial relationship stuff, if it's not asked for, you probably just shouldn't give it. Because most of the time, the advice you're giving is worth as much as they paid for it, which is zero, right? They're not paying you for your advice, so they don't care. They're gonna treat it as that. Anyway, this is just a quick little moment with me this morning. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. By the way, I posted YouTube channel just became monetized. Thank you all. Really appreciate everybody who's helped me and shown me support along the way, liking and subscribing. I don't really know anything about YouTube. A lot of this technology stuff is I'm still in touch with it, but I feel like some of it is a little bit out of my grasp because I haven't focused on it over the years. So I'll continue to make content, I guess. This is making content, just doing videos, doing quick little clips here and there. I'm going to get further, have a studio set up so that we'll be able to do more things. The food for Universal Yums will return. I know that I had a lot of people telling me that they really enjoyed that, watching the kids eat food, seeing their faces and stuff like that, and it's pretty fun to see it. It's actually really, I would say one of the best parts as like a dad involved with that is having those videos and being able to look back at them years later. The kids really like watching their own videos and seeing how they've grown. As far as that's like this channel, right? That's what I'm going to be doing here is just more close personal stuff, talks, stuff like that. I'll end up having people that I'll have interviews and stuff like that. Like we'll just be talking. We'll record our conversations. I know as far as for my my business, there's been people that were asking me about going over some business ideas and business stuff as far as like how I grew my business and things that I did. So I'll probably go into something like that, but it'll be here on this. Jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, I won't be posting any jiu-jitsu stuff here. I have on the channel for the YouTube channel, I have competitions and stuff, and I think like seminars I've taught. I posted some of the stuff on here from that. I'll probably do that again if I continue, if I end up to where I feel like I want to compete again. I'll do that here as well, but I'm not going to be posting any like going over moves or anything like that. That's going to be on the Gracie Barra Springfield Facebook page. I'll probably just keep all that stuff there, if or when we do any of that stuff. But I've had a lot of people want me to go over moves because I do some of the moves that I do. I show like different variations that has worked for me over the years. Um, and there's just so much jujitsu content out there. I mean, you can go anywhere, and anyone and everyone is showing something, and everybody wants to show something new or their variation of it. And I'm like, I'm not that worried about that type of stuff. I feel like that's a area to compete that I just don't feel the desire to do so. Um, Other than that, yeah, it'd just be food, family, talks, some jujitsu, I guess, if there's competitions or whatever. Guitar playing. I'll probably post a few more. I don't feel like I'm good enough to really post that because I see some people that post and they're amazing. I'm like, how is this person not professional, right? How do they not have a record deal? Their voices are wonderful. They're playing. They're just so great. So posting, I'll keep guitar posts probably to a limited amount. Maybe once in a while ish. Um, Other than that, yeah, I just again touching base today about careful for the information or careful for the suggestions or advice that you offer. That's all I'm saying. Just careful for that advice. I'm careful for the advice that I'm offering as well, right? That's goes both ways. So thank you all, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.